Okay then guys, welcome again to our video series. Today, pardon me, we're going to be going over premises inspection standards, but this time, this is the part 2 version of it. I'm not going to be going over the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. I'm going to be concentrating on number 7. We've recently been in contact with a few pharmacies who have had the new types of inspections done, and what we felt would be useful would be to provide you with a bit of feedback on some of the things that were discussed. Today is now the 14th of October. These inspections are the prototype ones, so in other words, for those of you who don't remember or haven't watched the previous video, statutory notices won't be issued at this time, but these are the sort of things that I think they will be looking for in the future as well. It's not going to take that long. It's probably going to be about 5 minutes. We're going to be focusing on number 7 today. So it's examples of questions asked, and these are real examples of some of the things that some of our members have gone through when these inspections have taken place. So let's move on. Oh, by the way, if you want to look at some of the other videos here, so the other video, the previous one, between 1 to 6, it's actually on our website, or just give us a shout at the office and we can send you a link to look at it online. Now, what I did was that we interviewed the person concerned, and we got an idea of some of the things that they were asked, and we broke it down into 4 or 5 different areas. So it was length of time, so that's the length of time of the inspection, what they did prior to the inspection, so in other words, what preparation they did before they actually entered even the pharmacy. Some note about the premises that they looked at, some investigation into the processes that they looked at, and finally some things that they asked the people, in other words your staff. They actually did have a chat with them as well. So anyway, the length of time, well, it actually took around about 2.5 hours, and that's around about the sort of time that you're going to probably need to set aside for these sorts of inspections. Apparently they weren't intrusive, but still they do take a lot of time because they're going to ask you a lot of questions. So it's just something for you to bear in mind. 2.5 hours is quite a while actually, come to think about it. Prior to the inspection, what they did was they looked at 2 or 3 different things. They looked at the shop facias, in other words, they spent a bit of time looking, making sure that it's professional and reasonably good looking. And they also looked at the various posters, including things like the opening hours, etc. So the first thing I could probably suggest is if your shop fascia is in a mess, prior to these inspections you may want to have a little clean up of that, and make sure it does look reasonably professional, and make sure obviously you've got your opening hours at the front as well. They as we spoke about in the previous video, this they did concentrate quite a bit on the premises itself. So the way they did this particular pharmacy was they took a quick walk around the pharmacy. I presume what they did was they were looking for obvious issues, things like holes in the ceiling, cracks in the floor, those sorts of things I can only assume. They did look at the flooring. One of the things that they mentioned about this pharmacy was that they suggested they may want to get the carpeting changed. So those are the sorts of things they probably didn't actually look at previously, but they're looking at now. And they did actually look at the security of the premises as well. So they're looking at things like the locks, the doors, CCTV, alarms, and also whether or not you have shutters. So they are taking quite a big step in the direction of making sure that your pharmacy itself is secure. The other thing I think I probably should mention in security was also the CD keys as well. They did look at that, and how those are managed as well. So in other words, how do you keep them secure? How do you make sure you keep account of them? So those are sorts of things that they're asking about there. Now the biggest part of the inspection, actually let's not go into processes yet, but let's go into people. One of the other things that they did ask was they asked quite a few questions of the people inside the pharmacy as well. So some examples that they asked were they asked about what types of incentives and targets the staff were getting. I presume this was in the I suppose this could have been as a direct result of the recent MUR issues and the target setting resulting in that. They were asking about various safeguarding. They were asking whether or not the staff were getting regular appraisals and training, and also very important one in actual fact, and I think something that you may want to talk about to your staff with as well, is how to raise concerns. In other words, what processes are there of raising concerns in the pharmacy. Okay, so the last bit I'd probably want to chat to you about is the processes as well. They looked at quite a lot of the different types of processes which occurred in the pharmacy. As you can probably see, there's a lot going on here. So let's go each one in turn. They looked at the cleaning procedures. So in other words, is there a rota in place for cleaning? Believe it or not, so they're pretty strict on this one. Temperature control. Not only were they looking at the fridge, but they're also looking at regular temperature control in the dispensary as well. So, do you check your temperature in the pharmacy? Is that a reasonable temperature? I mean, it's a bit daft, mind you, I think, but they did ask it. Following on from the safety issue, not the safety issue, but the security issue, CD key control. How has that worked? They also check the near miss log to make sure that it's being regularly completed. So if you're not completing it, then you know, if the last entry was say a year ago, then you may want to start thinking about doing that now. Another question that they posed was this one here. They actually asked the pharmacist on duty what changes occurred as a direct result of customer feedback, and I presume some of your patient questionnaires and the analysis resulting that could be used in this. So you might want to just have it in the back of your mind, if this question is asked, what sort of things what changes did you make to your pharmacy or your processes as a direct result of customer feedback. They checked to make sure that the responsible pharmacist log was completed. They also went over the process of how you deal with wholesalers to make sure that they are reputable. None of this sort of like back of the car type business, but they did ask what sort of wholesalers use. They did check the SOPs. Now this is something that we've been working on quite a long time at Pharma Plus with, and we're literally almost there. We've updated all of the SOPs. We're just waiting now for the formatter from our publishing side to get back to us with the final version of the nicely formatted SOPs. So expect that very, very shortly. You will get the whole new batch of SOPs coming through by email very soon. They checked also the specials folder. And one of the things that they particularly were interested in was whether or not you keep the certificates of compliance. They did also check the various PGDs that you do. Alright, so they were checking to make sure that you had the appropriate certification, that you had the appropriate training, that you were advertising it appropriately, and also this is where testing comes in actual fact. They were asking about calibration of the machines that you use. So for example, if you're using a blood pressure machine, how do you know it's accurate? You know, how do you get it professionally calibrated? So they actually did ask about that. So it's something, again, if you're doing say cholesterol tests and you haven't got a machine that's calibrated, if you're doing blood pressure tests and you haven't got a machine that's calibrated, how do you calibrate it? There are various ways in which you can do it, but it's something that, again, you need to think about. Obviously, they check the CDs. I mean, that's quite a common thing with dispensing, to make sure you've got the processes in place, but also to make sure that the balances check out. They did look at things like the date checking as well. So again, if you haven't got your date check matrices together, get that together ASAP. So make sure you are signing them off every single month. And finally, they looked at things like the prescription logs as well, the private prescription logs, to make sure that you're regularly recording it as well. Okay, so that in a nutshell is what this particular pharmacy had to go through. I'm sure that when you have your inspections coming up, it may be slightly different, and we would welcome your feedback. I'd love to put more information on this mind map, so at least that way we can share it with everybody else. But hopefully it'll give you a reasonably good idea as to the changes that have occurred recently, and not only that, but also some of the things I think that you may want to look into if you're not doing it in your pharmacy, because they are looking at these things. Okay then, so hope you found this useful. I will try and do another one of these next week on another topic, and thanks again for listening. Okay, take care, bye bye.